A public school can charge zero tuition and still cost a family more than $500,000. In one highly rated American school district, the typical home was recently priced roughly $668,000 above the surrounding metro. In England, careful boundary research finds measurable property premiums on the side linked to the stronger school. Singapore goes even further. Living within 1 kilometer can change admission priority. The education may be publicly funded. The address is sold by the housing market. So when parents buy a home, how much are they secretly paying for school? Public education is supposed to be free. The family pays taxes and the child attends school without an annual tuition invoice. But that describes only the direct payment. In cities where admission depends on residential geography, families pay for education through the housing market instead. They bid against each other for the land that grants access to a specific classroom. The United States provides a clear example of this mechanism. Public education is heavily organized around local school districts and attendance boundaries. This structure embeds school access directly into the value of a home. In these systems, a home bundles physical space with district membership. The residential address serves as an education access coordinate, making the location a primary driver of property value. To understand the scale of these differences, we can look at the St. Louis metropolitan area. According to a 2025 analysis, the typical home asking price in the Ladue School District was approximately $968,000. In the surrounding metropolitan area outside that district, the median price was closer to $300,000. That is an observed gap of around $668,000, more than 3 times the surrounding metro price. But we must be careful with those numbers. This is a descriptive difference, not a causal one. We cannot claim that the school alone caused a $668,000 increase in property value. Desirable school districts often contain larger homes, wealthier households, and better municipal services. The school and the neighborhood are economically intertwined, meaning the high price reflects a combination of every local amenity, not just the test scores. To find the true, isolated price of a free school, we have to look past the averages and find an invisible geographic line. For more precise evidence, we turn to England. A 2026 research paper studied secondary school catchment boundaries to isolate the causal premium. Researchers use a boundary discontinuity approach. They look at 2 houses on the same street that are nearly identical in every physical way. The only difference is an invisible line. House A has access to a highly demanded school. House B does not. On average, properties on the side of the boundary linked to the stronger school are roughly 2.5% more expensive. However, when the quality gap between the 2 schools is substantial, the premium jumps. In those cases, the market places a premium of roughly 7% to 8% on the house with the better access. This research suggests parents are buying a bundle. They are pricing in the academic results, the socioeconomic composition of the students, and the school's reputation. When test scores and social prestige align, the price signal is strongest. Property markets effectively value parental perceptions. If families believe a peer environment influences their child's future, that belief becomes embedded in the land value. In Singapore, this geographic connection is formalized through strict distance rules. A residential address acts as a primary coordinate for school admission. During Primary 1 registration, when schools are oversubscribed, priority is given to Singapore citizens living within 1 kilometer. The next tier includes those between 1 and 2 kilometers. This creates a textbook scarcity mechanism, limited land within a small radius around a popular school. In Sydney, New South Wales, the system relies on local enrollment areas. Families use an official school finder to identify their local public school. To prevent families from using temporary or false addresses, schools under enrollment pressure enforce a 100-point residential check. They require utility bills, signed leases, or ownership documents to prove the family actually lives in the zone. This enforcement is what maintains the property's value. Without strict verification, the geographic right to a seat would be easy to bypass, and the location premium would collapse. Every family faces a school cost triangle. They can pay a premium for a home in a top public district, choose a cheaper home and pay explicit private tuition, or accept a different public school. Some families choose to rent inside the zone. While this lowers the initial capital requirement, it often means paying a higher monthly rent and facing the risk that the landlord might sell or the lease might not be renewed. For buyers, the premium creates a wealth barrier. A 20% deposit on a $700,000 home is $140,000. In a $1 million school zone, that same deposit jumps to $200,000. That $60,000 gap is a high entry price for a free school. The rest of the premium is financed through debt. A family might spend 30 years paying interest on the extra mortgage required just to live on the right side of the boundary. Unlike private tuition, which is an annual consumption cost, the house premium is a leveraged asset. If the school remains popular, the family might recover part of that capital when they eventually sell the home. This leads to a process called residential sorting. When a school improves, housing demand rises, which pushes up prices. Higher income households move in, changing the peer composition, which often leads to even higher school metrics. But this asset is vulnerable. Families buy into districts based on high ratings, but public institutions are not static. Ratings can fall, and admissions policies can change. Demographic shifts also pose a risk. If the number of children in a city declines, the pressure on catchments eases. When a seat at a popular school is no longer scarce, the extreme property premium associated with living next door can evaporate. A homeowner can renovate a kitchen to add value, but they have no control over a school boundary. That invisible line is an external asset that can be moved or redefined by the government. Across the world, the mechanisms differ. U.S. districts, English boundaries, Singapore distance radiuses, and Australian enrollment checks. Yet the economic result is the same. When a highly demanded public service is tied to an address, the value of that service is eventually captured by the housing market. The school may charge zero tuition at the door, but when access depends on geography, the housing market extracts the cost before the child ever enters the classroom. At MoneyMap, we explore where your money works, rather than simply how much of it you have.